Season 3 of Apple TV's Shrinking, it's all about change. Not that the rest of the show hasn't been, but now we watch Jimmy, Paul, Gaby, Alice, and the rest grapple with what life looks like as their lives move forward. With Alice leaving for college, Paul's Parkinsons continuing to affect his practice, Gaby experiencing confidence-shaking revelations, Liz and Derek attempting to cut the umbilical cord, Brian and Charlie progressing on their fatherhood journey, and Sean making massive strides, Jimmy has to now deal with his own growth and decide if he can move forward amidst all the upheaval of change. This continues to be one of the best heartfelt and heartwarming shows on TV. Brett Goldstein has taken all of the touchingly sweet sentiments of Ted Lasso and then channeled them into another story that still isn't devoid of conflict or intense emotions, but also approaches life with a hopeful outlook through the eyes of richly endearing characters. Now, the third season picks up a little after the finale of season 2, where we watch Alice in her senior year of high school looking to move across the country to attend university on the East Coast. And that's kind of our entry into this arc. Upheaval, disruption, major changes. This season focuses on all of that and then takes each of the characters on both individual and collective progressions through the discomfort of the unknown. Now, while we have the return of the regular cast, who are awesome, by the way, we get some guest stars that show up periodically throughout the season. Now, these were all shown in the trailer, so they're not really spoilers, but if you don't want to know who they are, just skip forward about 10 seconds. We got Michael J. Fox, Jeff Daniels, Candice Bergen, and then sporadic returns of both Colby Smulders and Brett Goldstein. The guest stars are not only excellent additions and played to perfection, but they also pinpoint and enhance specific story arcs, and then draw attention to the conflict without overshadowing the rest of the cast or storylines. Now, one in particular is poignantly cast, and just chef's kiss for the role. Jason Segel, he continues to be the loving oaf who is extremely effective in helping others, but also terrible at getting out of his own way and then making progress in his own life. Jimmy continues to hide behind the growth of others, never fully facing down his own hurts and struggles. Now, I appreciate how the story continues to speak into Jimmy's issues through the arcs of all those that are in his circle. The melancholy, even heartache, it's palpable, but it's never overwhelming. The writing allows Jimmy, as well as all the other characters, to experience disappointment or loss and then not race to fix it. While it's more optimistic than real life, it does balance hurt with an encouraging outlook that avoids stereotypical emotional pitfalls other shows fall into. Now, there are some gasp-worthy moments within the storytelling. A couple I think are foreshadowed effectively, but the lack of surprise, it doesn't detract from the arc's impact. And these sequences allow for new perspectives into our characters, watching them now have to deal with emotions or situations they've not encountered previously in the show. And I love the depth that this provides, creating even more connection to the personas we are already invested in, and then making them just infinitely stronger, sometimes more relatable. Not every show can balance comedy with difficult or sullen plots. And I love how we can be taken on a journey through the feels, allowed to spend an appropriate amount of time in each emotional state, almost as though we're progressing through a round of therapy sessions without ever having to feel manipulated by the storytelling. One of the major arcs, which has been increasing since the first season, is Harrison Ford's Paul's Parkinson's disease. The show impressively approaches this with the tenderness and the frankness that it needs, but also creates awareness without pandering or falsely creating some sympathy. The show doesn't portray Paul as weak or helpless, which I appreciate. He's still a formidable presence and character, and it's touching to see how carefully and respectfully Ford portrays the condition. And he's convincing at it also. I mean, I had to look up if by chance that he actually did have Parkinson's. He doesn't. This is definitely a wonderful performance. Now, the show also introduces a phrase that is used in solidarity and kind of as an anthem for Paul. It has to be said with meaning and purpose, never offhanded or trite. And I love that it subtly works to continue the Parkinson's awareness. As almost a greeting or a goodbye, the phrase F. Parkinson's is used and then echoed by all the friends in attendance. I loved the beauty in this. The profanity may be off-putting to some, but it's extremely fitting and not used flippantly. It has purpose. So in my eyes, it removes the stigma of profanity and then changes the meaning to one of pure support. Now, unlike season 2, this season only has 11 episodes, which was a bummer because I just love spending time in this world. And I know it can sometimes seem like the show is bouncing around, especially now that so many of the characters have become major influences within the storylines. But these arcs, they're all interwoven so that they tightly draw the segments together rather than becoming distractions or tangents, each taking a piece of wisdom or conflict and then addressing it through a different perspective thanks to the fresh interactions. Now, the pacing, it's snappy thanks to the shifting focus, but that snappiness doesn't equate to rushed or choppy. The scenes have been honed in the writing so that they effectively capture the tone and emotion that's needed to then switch and move the story forward naturally. As I was watching, I was trying to pinpoint if I have a favorite character. I'm not sure if I could single one of them out. All of the regulars each have a special something that makes them endearing. Sometimes cringy, often funny, certainly memorable. I do know, though, that this is my favorite type of role for Harrison Ford. When he plays old grumpy guy with a softy persona just under the surface, he's captivating. There aren't many roles that I remember him being so affecting. He's typically cast as the determined and gruff hero. I think the only role I can think that might have prepared him for this one, it's Morning Glory. But in Shrinking, he's way more sympathetic and caring as a character, even if he does his best to give off a repulsive energy. Now, whether or not this is the final season or if there are going to be more, the showrunner, Bill Lawrence, has said that the initial vision for Shrinking was to be a 3-season arc. And the way this ends, it kind of feels like that's how it's going to be. That being said, though, there aren't any massive goodbyes or conclusions, so portions of the storylines, they could be continued. I also kind of like the idea that by the end of this season, we've seen all of the characters grow to a point that another go isn't necessary. This isn't to say that all the stories are done, but they reach a point where we can leave them in confidence that while things won't always be easy or perfect, they each have the tools and strength to succeed and move on. I'm in love with this show. From the performances to the touching storylines, each interaction and complication is addressed with the appropriate mix of laughter and compassion. Not every situation is relatable, but the narrative invites us into the world to connect with the characters in emotionally sincere ways, to commiserate with them, and gain impactful takeaways, all while receiving a hopeful outlook for what's to come. The pacing is efficient, creating scenarios that benefit from appropriate focus without dragging on or feeling shortchanged. While some of the arcs can be predictable, there's a comfort in knowing what to expect, even if we don't know the full story. There's no sex, some nudity, a ton of profanity, no violence. I give Season 3 of Shrinking 5 out of 5 couches. If you love the uplifting and feel-good vibes of the previous seasons, you're going to love this one as well. It just makes me yearn for more, but I will be satisfied if 3 seasons is all we get. Okay, so are there any shows that create an inspired or happy feeling for you? I'd love to hear about what shows put a smile on your face in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me. Oh, and fuck Parkinsons.